This is what your narcissist secretly wants with you now, after a long breakup. There's a strange kind of silence that follows a breakup with a narcissist. Not the kind of silence that brings peace, but the kind that feels like waiting, like something is lingering just beneath the surface. You've moved on. You've healed. You've built a life that no longer revolves around their chaos. And yet, you feel it. The subtle signs. A sudden message out of nowhere. An awkward encounter. A post they liked or commented on from the shadows. It makes you wonder, what do they really want now? After all this time, after the dust has settled and you've begun to reclaim your own identity, it can be confusing, unsettling, to realize that the narcissist still thinks about you. Maybe even obsesses over you. But not in the way most people miss someone. Not with love or longing or regret. No, what they want from you now is far more complicated. And if you truly understand it, you'll finally see through the illusion once and for all. Today, we're diving deep into psychology behind what your narcissist secretly wants with you now, long after the relationship has ended. We won't be guessing. We won't be dramatizing. Instead, we'll look at what psychologists observe in real cases, the patterns of behaviors, the hidden motives that explain why they keep circling back, even when they claim to have moved on. Because the truth is, they may have left the relationship, but they never fully left you behind. And understanding why could change everything. Let's start by acknowledging one simple fact. Narcissists don't form emotional attachments the way most people do. Their relationships aren't built on mutual respect, vulnerability, or genuine care. They are built on control, admiration, and influence. That means when they were with you, you weren't entering a traditional partnership. You were stepping into a role designed to serve their needs. At first, it might have felt intoxicating. The attention, the flattery, the intensity. But over time, things shifted. Boundaries were tested. Conflicts twisted into manipulation. Love became conditional. And eventually, you walked away, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring too much about yourself to stay. But here's the thing. Walking away didn't end their connection to you. In many ways, it made it worse. Because losing you disrupted the foundation of their world. And narcissists cannot tolerate disruption without trying to regain control, even if only in their mind. So what exactly do they want now? Let's break it down. 1. They want validation that they still matter to you. Narcissists thrive on attention. It's the fuel that keeps them going. Whether it's praise, conflict, or even silent acknowledgement, any reaction confirms their presence in your life. That's why even long after breakup, they often find ways to test the waters. To see if you're still watching, still reacting, still affected by them. This isn't about missing you. It's about needing proof that they still hold some power over you. Every time you respond, every time you acknowledge them, even with silence, they get the validation they crave. And that's what they want most. Confirmation that you haven't completely erased them from your reality. 2. They want to reassert control over your perception of them. One of the most painful truths about being involved with a narcissist is realizing that they saw you less as a person and more as a reflection of themselves. Everything was performative. Every interaction was strategic. And when you left, you took with you a piece of the image they worked so hard to maintain. Now they want that image back. They want to rewrite the narrative in your mind. They want you to remember them as a charming, powerful, unforgettable person they pretended to be. Not the manipulative, fragile, insecure individual you uncovered before you walked away. So they reach out, they drop hints, they try to reframe events in a way that paints them in a better light. It's not about reconciliation. It's about reshaping how you see them. 3. They fear exposure and you represent that threat. For all their bravado, narcissists live in constant fear of being exposed. They know their behavior doesn't align with the image they project. And they know you saw the cracks in the mask. You witnessed the lies. You noticed the inconsistencies. You called out the manipulation. And worst of all, you left. That act of leaving wasn't just an ending for you. It was a threat to them. Because if you saw through them, others might too. And that's why they can't let go. They need to remind themselves, and sometimes others, that you still carry some weight in their world. Even if it's just a memory. Even if it's just a story they tell themselves, they need to believe that you still matter to them because you once challenged them. 4. They want to win, even when there's no game left to play. To a narcissist, relationships aren't about love or connection. They're about winning, about proving dominance, about maintaining the upper hand. And when someone leaves them, especially someone who saw through them, it feels like a loss, one they can't accept. So even years later, even after new partners, new roles, new lives, they still circle back. Not because they want you back, but because they want to prove they still have power over you. If they can stir your emotions, trigger your insecurities, or pull you into old dynamics, they feel victorious. Even if it's brief, even if it's meaningless. To them, it's enough. 5. Narcissists may project an image of unwavering confidence, but beneath the surface lies a deep and persistent insecurity that they spend their entire lives trying to hide. They are not self-assured in the way most people understand confidence. They are dependent on constant validation, admiration, and attention to maintain even the illusion of stability. Without this external reinforcement, their carefully constructed sense of self begins to crumble. That's why losing you was such a destabilizing experience for them. You were once a source of emotional energy, whether through admiration, conflict, or even resistance. You played a role in their world, whether as someone who challenged them, supported them, or simply witnessed their behavior. And regardless of how things ended, your absence created a gap that they have struggled to fill. Not because you were irreplaceable, but because of what your departure represented. A loss of control, a disruption to their narrative, and most importantly, a reminder that they are not as powerful as they pretend to be. Even if they've moved on to someone else, even if they appear to have replaced you without hesitation, that new connection can never quite replicate what you provided. Not because of who you were specifically, but because of what your leaving symbolized. You chose to walk away. You made a decision that they could not control. And that act of independence is something that continues to unsettle them long after you're gone. That's why they keep returning to your memory. They replay moments where you resisted their influence, where you stood up for yourself, where you refused to play along with their games. These aren't memories of love or longing. They are reminders of failure, of the times when their manipulation didn't work, when their charm didn't land, when their power over you began to slip. These lingering thoughts aren't about missing you. They're about struggling with the idea that you no longer serve their needs, that you no longer validate their ego, that you are no longer there to reflect back the image they want to see. And for someone who depends so heavily on external affirmation, that kind of loss is deeply unsettling. It's not about you. It's about their inability to cope with rejection and their desperate need to feel remembered, admired, and in control. Because for a narcissist, being forgotten is one of the greatest fears of all. And you, by choosing to leave, became the living proof that they are not immune to being left behind. 6. Narcissists have an intense aversion to unfinished narratives. They cannot tolerate loose ends or unresolved situations, especially when those situations involve them losing control. Even if they were the ones who ended the relationship, even if they walked away first or acted as though you meant nothing to them, the finality of your separation still unsettles them deeply, because in their mind, they're always meant to be in charge of the story, of the emotions, of how things conclude. That's why, even after a long period of silence, they often find ways to reappear. Not because they want to restart the relationship, not because they suddenly miss you or regret what happened, but because they need to shape the ending on their own terms. They can't accept being left with a version of the story where they weren't the ones in control. So they come back, not fully, not openly, but just enough to shift the narrative in their favor. They might send a message that seems harmless at first, something vague or disguised as coincidence. They may show up in places you frequent, online or in real life, creating situations where you're forced to acknowledge their presence. They comment on your posts, reach out through mutual connections, or subtly insert themselves into your digital space. These aren't random occurrences. They're deliberate actions aimed at regaining influence over how you remember them. Their goal isn't reconciliation. Their goal is to leave the last impression. They want you to remember them as powerful, unforgettable, in control, even if everything about the way things ended tells a different story. They want to reshape your memory of them so that you don't hold on to the version of them that failed to keep you, the version that was exposed and ultimately rejected, until they can rewrite the ending. Until they can twist the final chapter into one that serves their ego, they will remain stuck in the past. They won't truly move on because doing so would mean accepting a reality where they lost control, where someone saw through them, and where they couldn't dictate the outcome. And for a narcissist, that kind of loss is something they simply cannot tolerate. 7. That healing truly begins the moment you fully grasp a crucial realization. The narcissists need to stay connected to you, whether through messages, silent observation, or subtle attempt at re-entry into your life, has absolutely nothing to do with who you are as a person. It's not about your character, your actions, or your worth in any real sense. It's not even about what happened between you while you were together. Their fixation is rooted entirely in their own internal struggles. Their deep fear of being exposed for who they really are, their inability to handle rejection, and their desperate need to maintain control over how others see them. Narcissists build their entire sense of self on a foundation of illusion, one that depends on admiration, influence, and constant validation from others. When someone like you walks away, when someone sees past a mask and refuses to play along anymore, it creates a crack in that illusion, and that crack terrifies them. That's why they can't let go. Not because they love you, not because they miss you, but because your absence represents something they cannot tolerate, proof that their control isn't absolute. Understanding this truth, that their continued obsession with you has nothing to do with your value or importance, is one of the most powerful moments in your healing journey. It shifts everything. Suddenly, you're no longer questioning what you did wrong or wondering if you meant anything to them. You stop searching for reasons behind their behavior, because you realize those reasons have never been about you in the first place. Instead, you begin to see their actions for what they really are, symptoms of their own emotional instability, their need to stay in your orbit, to pop up unexpectedly, to stir emotions even from afar. It's not about you. It's about their fear of exposure, their struggle with rejection, and their need to preserve the image they work so hard to create. Once you understand that, you start to reclaim your power. You stop giving them the mental space they crave. You stop looking back. You come to realize that you are not trapped by them anymore. You are not defined by their perception of you. You are not the ghost they linger over out of love or longing. You are simply living proof that their world is not as flawless as they want others to believe, and that, more than anything, is why they can't release you from their mind. Letting go of the idea that their behavior reflects something about you, your worth, your failure, your significance, is where true healing starts. Because once you see clearly that their obsession is born from their own broken foundation, you begin to walk away, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, and you do so knowing that you are no longer under their spell. To wrap this up, it's essential to understand that what your narcissist truly wants from you now, long after the relationship has ended, is not rooted in love, closure, or any genuine desire for healing. Those are human needs, emotional responses that come from a place of growth and self-awareness. What drives them is something entirely different. Their interest in you, even from a distance, even in silence, comes from a need to feel powerful, validated, and in control. They want proof, any proof, that they still hold some influence over your thoughts, your emotions, your memories. They want to know that you still think about them, that they occupy space in your mind, that they haven't been completely erased from your world. It doesn't matter if those thoughts are positive or negative. What matters to them is that you still react, still remember, still carry some trace of their presence in your life. This isn't about affection. It's not about missing you as a person. It's about maintaining the illusion that they mattered to you, that they were important, unforgettable, irreplaceable. Because deep down, beneath all the bravado and manipulation, narcissists are incredibly fragile individuals who rely on external validation to feel whole. And when someone like you walks away, someone who saw through them, resisted them, and ultimately left, they experience a kind of loss that lingers far beyond the relationship itself. But here's where your power lies. You no longer have to feed into that need. You don't have to give them the attention, the reaction, or the mental space they crave. You are free, completely and unapologetically free, to heal on your own terms, to move forward without looking back, to build a life that no longer revolves around their chaos, their games, or their need for control. Every step you take toward your own well-being weakens their hold on your mind and heart. Every moment you spend focusing on yourself, on your growth, on your truth, pushes them further into the background of your story. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your present and shaping your future without letting them dictate how you feel or who you become. And as you do that, as you fully step into your own strength and stop giving them space in your thoughts, you begin to strip them of something they can never truly replace, the illusion that they ever had any real control over you in the first place. Because in the end, the only thing they've truly lost is a belief that they can manipulate your perception forever. The belief that they could shape how you see them, even long after you walked away. And once you realize that, once you fully embrace the truth of your own freedom, you'll understand something deeply empowering. They're not haunting you. They're haunted by you.